is Michael Wida, and today we're going to be talking about user-defined business logic. What is user-defined business logic? It is any way that the user can define a query or a parameter that the system will interpret, and based upon that query or parameter, display data in a different way than normal. Why is this useful? The main reason you would want to use this is if you have a hosted app and a local app, and you want to sync data between the two and manage what data gets sent between the two in an easy and manageable fashion. Using this, you can create one layout and manage all data that is synced on all of your layouts between the two apps in one place. It also allows users who are less technically inclined to help specify business rules for these sync processes without them having to know a ton on the developer side. It can also reduce your costs of having a developer when business rules change, as they inevitably do. You won't have to go to a developer and say, hey, can you change this script to now also include these, or you won't have to go update scripts yourself, because this will all be dynamically done by the system when it's interpreting these queries. Today, I'll be using a simple orders application to demo off this logic. And if you want to follow along with the video, you can download this file off of the article. So let's begin. As you can see here, we have some order records, and they have prices, quantities, totals. And if we go to the sync menu, you'll see that it has this tab control with the portal and this plus button. If you click this plus button, it'll bring up a selector for all of the layouts currently in your system. We can actually add a new layout to this. Doesn't matter what it's called, we'll just leave it as the default. And then we'll go back to the sync menu, and you'll see that that layout's currently not in our list of ones we can select. If we click this refresh button, however, you'll see that layout 13 is now in here. What this button does is it truncates down our table of system layouts and then regrabs the list of layout IDs and populates these records with those layout names and values. This is completely searchable, so we can search for order, and we can also click on them and they'll appear in our portal. Now there's two aspects of this, the primary key field that is here and the limit criteria. The primary key field is really only useful if in syncing, and it's used as the match field for the data API. The limit criteria is where we're going to specify our query parameters. So if we go in here, you'll see we have a nice card window. We have an informations tab, which tells you how to set up these queries. If you want to use a built-in FileMaker function, you can do so using the # and then open curly bracket, function name, close curly bracket, and the system will use the evaluate FileMaker function to determine whether that is a valid function or not, and if it is, it'll return the value that that function would have returned. So using get current date would return today's date, and we can show that here. If you have a field that has spaces in it or has underscores, you're going to want to put brackets around those fields so it is treated as a block of text instead of breaking those up. Best practice here is to space out the queries on their own line. So you want to specify field and then your value, and then you want to go to the next line if you're doing another one. This just keeps it easy to manage from a user perspective because it's much better and cleaner to read that way than if everything's just on one line. And then we do support both omits and new records, and I'll be demoing both of those here in a minute. So we have this fields dropdown, and this will show you all of the fields that are currently on your layout. So if we go here and we choose total weight, we can insert any of the operators. These operators are all of the basic FileMaker operations that you can take in a find. And this is our custom new find request placeholder that will be evaluated out later when we parse this and replaced by separating out your logic into array indexes. But for now, we'll just do a real basic one. We'll say weight is less than 300. And we'll click this preview query button here, and it displays a JSON object. This JSON object has two parts to it. The key, which is the field name. And as you can see, that field name is currently wrong because I did not wrap our field name in brackets. And now you'll see it treats it right. And then on the right side of that, it has our parameters, and our parameters will include our operator and then whatever value we're wanting to evaluate at. If we want to do a new find, we can add a new find here, and then just for simplicity's sake, we'll just grab this KPT ID and we'll say less than, and we might as well show off our function capabilities while we're here. Say get current date, and you can just type straight into this box. You don't have to use these operators or fields box. It does just help if you're not exactly familiar with the field name or the setup of the operators. But if we preview this query, you'll see that it changed get current date into today's current date, which is June 15th. Now I won't run this query because that's not valid to do with a KPT ID, which is the primary key for this table, and a date. But we will run this total weight query, and we see we get 3 out of 7. And the total weight field is here. And now we can get a little bit more fancy with our query. So we'll insert our new find record. We will insert total price, and we'll say total price is greater than 195. And you'll see that these are now separate. This creates an OR find. And we can run this query, and you'll see we get 6 out of 7. So how does this process our query? It works using this while loop that calculates our query. It builds our JSON object by looking for any escape fields. And as I said earlier, our escape fields are the brackets. If it finds a bracket, it'll treat that whole block of text as a string. And then if it finds that the current setting we're looking at is a new record request, we'll set that flag. If we have an omit, we'll set the omit flag. And then we'll evaluate that case. And that's used to determine the array position. Basically, if we have a new flag, we want to create it as a separate array index, so that way it gets evaluated as an or instead of an and. And then finally, we'll calculate the result of this by determining if it's a new flag, then we just want to paste the result. Otherwise, if it is an omit, we want to add this omit flag, and that's so the system will know that we want to omit these records. And then otherwise, we'll just build it as a key value pair, and then we'll pop off the top value so that way we move on to the next one and we'll evaluate until it's empty. Now, how do we handle custom functions or FileMaker functions? We have a custom function here that is another while loop, and this one specifically looks for our function notation. And so all this one will do is if it finds that function notation, use the evaluate it. If it's valid, paste that value into it. Otherwise, we'll just pass over it. So run that query. Now we'll show an omit. Let's say we want to omit these total price ones. You could see that we added the omit is true flag here, and it's only on this array index with the one we specified on. And so we can run that query, and now you'll see we only get 2 out of 7. Let's show how these selectors work. The layout selector is simply a list view of all your layouts. This lets you, as the user, just have a nice interface to choose what layouts you want included in this. And that's so when you do decide to hook it up to the data API, you can simply just grab a list of these layouts and their query parameters and pass those as query objects to the data API. And this is simply just a card window. This is just a text field. And as I've shown, this uses our custom function to parse out our query request and find any functions that need to be evaluated and spits it back out at us as a nice JSON object. The last thing I want to show here is how I'm actually running these queries. I wrote a simple script that will just parse out the information we provided in that query. So it'll grab the layout, the sync query, and the selection ID. It'll go to this layout and it'll grab our selection data from that portal. And just to show you, I had added a global variable to show you that this is what our queries look like when we pass them into this. It'll get the number of indexes, and then we're just going to loop over the indexes to get the first array index and its parameters, and then we'll set those by name with the value, and then we'll keep going. If we have the omit flag, we'll set the omit record, and then if we've reached the end of our indexes, we know we can just exit. Otherwise, we know we must have a new record request there. And so we'll do that, and we'll continue to loop until we've built our JSON, and then it just performs the find. If you have any questions about how to add this into your FileMaker solution, or would like some assistance in doing so, feel free to reach out to us at DB Services. Thank you and have a great day.